This is Jackie, and I'm here with Anthony of Bayside on the day one of the Walking Wounded tour.
Yep.
This is actually our 7th interview over a very long time of years. But how would you say Bayside's sound has evolved from, let's say, Sirens and Condolences to Vacancy?
I think every record we feel has been kind of steps in the evolution. I think Sirens and Condolences was us really kind of not exactly knowing what we were doing, just kind of kids kind of putting songs together and, doing whatever we wanted to do. And I think with Self-Titled is when we started really, I think, learning how to write songs, like learning about song structure and how to get into kind of the mind of the listener and starting to think about that a little bit more. More of like sort of the textbook way of writing songs. And then Walking Wounded, I think, is really when we started messing around with a lot of like the really technical stuff. I think it's when Jack started really like being Jack, and we started playing around a lot with like time signature changes and key changes, and we're really just learning how to do it on that record. Just a whole lot of weird ideas, and then trying to figure out how we could make them work. And then it's funny that 10 years later that those are all like really important parts of our sound now, but I don't think we knew that we were doing that at the time.
Your website now has a bunch of nostalgic photographs. You even have like every single tour stop from the first 15 years or so. Over the course of your career so far, have you seen the role of social media evolve and change?
I mean, it's definitely important. At first, it was just a nice thing. I mean, I remember when MySpace had just come out, and everybody was talking about how, you got to get on MySpace, and it was a nice to have then, because it was a cool way to be able to interact with the fans. It was an easy way to get all your information. Here's one of our songs. Here's maybe a video. Here's all of our news. Here are our tour dates. This is what we're all about, all in one spot. So it was a cool, like, nice to have thing then, and now it's just like a need to have. It's really taken the place of traditional marketing and advertising, and it's everything at this point.
From paper flyers to your cell phone.
Yeah, which it's at the same time when you depend on social media the way like bands do or businesses do, it's frustrating because it's kind of like a moving target. You don't even know. Like, again, with MySpace, it was like, put it on the MySpace page, and this is, and that's it. And now it's like, well, we have the Facebook, and we have to have this is what's going to go on there, and these are the fans on there, and then we have to focus on Instagram and Twitter, and then we're like, well, are people still using Twitter? And then there's like, oh, there's this new thing now that you have to get a thing on, and you wind up with like 20 things, and like 14 or 15 of them don't take off, but you have to get it just in case, so. Yeah, it's like really kind of a moving target, but I mean, there are worse fates in life than having to post on 20 different sites that you're going on tour.
I mean, if the Orange Man can do it, we can do it too. It's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, we're figuring it out.
So as far as The Walking Wounded itself, what were some goals that you had for that album when you put it out?
We didn't really have goals. We didn't have goals like, I mean, I guess musically we wanted to stretch out a bit. We were feeling pretty confident. Self-Titled was like a pretty popular record for us, and so we were starting to feel pretty confident, and that helps when you're writing a record, when you're feeling good about yourself. But as career-wise, we certainly didn't have any, the same goals that we've had our whole career, which was always that we wanted to make sure that it kept us on the path of becoming a career band and a legacy band. That's always what we wanted. So there was that, but also, I mean, coming off of the accident and just getting Chris in the band, and it was just important for us to make a record. I don't think we thought like much past that. It was just, we wanted to make a record, and if people liked it, then they did. If we got more popular, then we did. But for us, it was more like proving to ourselves that we could do it.
What are some things or people that influenced the songwriting on that album?
I've always had like a pretty eclectic taste in music, but I think that was the record that we started shedding a little bit of the influence. Like with Self-Titled, you'd never know that there were certain songs that were influenced by show tunes or disco or reggae or whatever, because, you know, I know it was because it's what I was thinking of when I wrote something, but we really kind of kept things a little more straightforward with those influences. And Walking Wounded is where we really started saying, like, how about instead of being like influenced by Fiddler on the Roof, we just make this part sounding just like Fiddler on the Roof. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it's saying, you know, a lot of influences that we've always had, a lot of like disco, a lot of show tunes and stuff on that record.
Fair enough. What about the writing process, particularly about that album, was cathartic for you as well, writing as well as performing?
Just kind of like, again, it was so important for us just to know that we could make the record, that a lot of the normal like pressure of, are people going to like it? Are fans going to like it? Does it sound enough like us? Does it sound enough like the last record, but not too much like the last record? All those things were shedded at that point because, again, it was just all about, like, let's just make a record so that we can prove to ourselves that we can.
What do you attribute to that freedom that you had to kind of branch out and sort of do what you wanted to do sonically on that album?
I think, you know, it had to do definitely with the success of the self-titled record. I think Devotion Desire was like a pretty popular song, and so, you know, you do, when people start liking what you're doing, because Sirens didn't really like move the needle much for us. I mean, it did in the sense that, like, before that we were an unsigned, you know, band touring and playing in houses and stuff, and we were able to start doing some support tours and become a little bit more of a professional band. But self-titled was really kind of where we were like, wow, people like this. We have fans. We never had fans before, you know, like we didn't really have fans through self-titled. So, I mean, through Sirens. So we were like, oh, we have fans. So that it's really nice to have like that kind of confidence. And also, like, we did stretch out a little bit stylistically on self-titled. So we were like, well, maybe, you know, it gave us the confidence that we could stretch out a little bit more maybe. But yeah, and again, like, most importantly, just like proving to ourselves that we were able to make a record. You know, that's really all. We weren't thinking about all the normal things we think about when we make a record.
And that album was so pivotal to your career. What, from then on, has also given you that added push or that added sort of nudge that maybe turns things in a different direction?
It's hard, like, career-wise, I mean, musically speaking, it's really, like I said, where we were trying a lot of new things. At the time, they were new things. Now it's funny to say, like, I remember writing Walking Wounded and the song Walking Wounded and wanting to have key changes in it and having time signature change and have those things in the song. And it took me like a year to write that song, of going back to it and always thinking, like, it sounds jarring, and I don't want it to sound jarring. It sounds like math, and I don't want it to sound like math. There's got to be a way to put these key changes in and put all these technical aspects into the music without it sounding like math. And so it took so long to kind of like get that right. And now it's second nature. It's funny to think that, like, at the time that was what I spent a year of my life like focusing on, was how to make how to go from 3/4 to 4/4 without it sounding like math. And now it's like, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find a Bayside song that doesn't have a key change in it at this point. Like, I can't really write a song that just stays in one time signature anymore.
I would agree with that. So moving ahead to the future, you've done some solo work as well. You had a solo EP on Gumshoe imprint. What happened with that? With
the EP or with Gumshoe?
Both.
So, I mean, Gumshoe doesn't really exist. It's funny. I have like one person that helps me with some of the day-to-day kind of operations, but for the most part, Gumshoe is just something that exists for if I want to do something myself. You know what I mean? Like, we did a Bayside cover record, and it was like, well, you know, I'll put it out, you know what I mean? And like, I did the first solo record and just said, I want to do this myself, you know, I don't want to do this with a label. So that's what it exists for. And it's funny that, like, we get emails with people like submitting and want to be signed to Gumshoe, and I'm just like, hey, Gumshoe doesn't really exist. It's, you know,
it's just me.
It's just a logo. It doesn't really exist.
Okay. So your most recent release was Vacancy. What role did Nashville play in either the writing or sort of the things that helped influence?
It's funny, Nashville, it played the role of me hating being there. That was the key sort of like characteristic that it added to the record. I was just miserable and lost and really, fish out of water there. And so lyrically it played a huge part. When you spend time in Nashville and everybody always says, oh yeah, great music scene there, like you're going to get involved in the music scene there. I'm like, it has nothing, it had no impact on me at all, but now I've been there for 3.5 years or so, almost 4 years, and I love it now. I really kind of found my place there, gotten really comfortable. But at the time when I was writing Vacancy, like lyrically, it had a lot to do with just feeling like I didn't belong.
The word vacancy can have a positive or a negative connotation. What does it have for you now, even looking back on just that sort of time span difference?
Well, I mean, Vacancy was all about, I had gotten divorced, and it was all about being in this new place and having a new life, or not having, having my old life kind of go away. And it was all about, I wanted it to be about the transition between like where I was and figuring out what came next, because I hadn't yet. It literally was like me kind of living in a little apartment, just sorting myself out, and I've since sorted myself out, so that's good.
Absolutely. So next up, after this short little anniversary tour, you have Riot Fest. How do you go about choosing a set list for a festival like that, where sort of everyone and no one is what everyone's going to go see? Well,
this time around it was easy because we're gonna play The Walking Wounded in full, so that's our set for that show. It generally when we do things like that, though, festivals, Warped Tour, stuff like that, we call it a greatest hits set. That's kind of that usually keeps most people happy. Then you have the people who've seen you for 30 or 40 times, and they complain you play the same songs all the time, and you're like, well, you're not supposed to come 30 times. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's not who, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's, it's so awesome that people do come and see us that many times, but it's hard to, like, we kind of have to cater to the 99% who are seeing us for the first or second or third time, and they want to hear Duality, and they want to hear Devotion, Desire, and that's what 99% of the people are there for. And, like, I sympathize with the people, the 1% who have been there, who are there for their 30th or 40th time, are like, I'm just not even going to go see them anymore because all I do is play the same songs. It's like, I totally get that, I can't argue that, but like also, try to understand where we're coming from. It's like, we can't just play like all deep cuts and stuff. Like that song you have on a compilation from 2001, like can't be all that.
The three that have that, that import CD from Japan are like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Like that you can't cater to them, as much as we'd like to. And we try to do things like in New York in a couple of days, we're going to play Shudder in full, which is our least popular record. And we're going to do Walking Wounded every night. And in New York, we wanted to make it a little bit different. So we wanted to add a second record just to that night. And we talked for a few days about which second record to do, and we said, let's play, like, instead of playing like the second most popular record or something, let's play the least popular record, and that's for those people.
I like that. I think that's a good change up. So my last question
is, nobody will notice. I want to make that clear. Nobody will notice that we're doing that to please the people the unpleasable. They'll still be unpleased, but like we're going to do it anyway.
There's always a reason to bitch. Yeah. So my last question for you is Bayside 2000. I can't even say the sentence, but 2027. Where do you guys see yourself? It's so weird, right?
2020.
Don't even try to figure out how old we're going to be. It's not fun.
Yeah. Well, it's in 10 years, so that's easy. 10 more years. 10 more. I mean, since we started our band, we always wanted to be the kind of band that stuck around. We wanted to be the kind of band that, my parents, like I'm sure most people's parents, played their kids played us music that they grew up listening to, and there are things that they decided they wanted to play us, and things that they probably listened to that they forgot all about, and never thought that to share it with their children. And we wanted to be the kind of band that like our fans would share with their children, with that they would come out that found out about us in high school, and they come out in their mid-20s and their 30s and their 40s. You know, so that's always been really important to us. And every photo shoot and every record we make, every album cover, everything's always been about, are we going to be embarrassed of this in 10 years? And that's a real, you know, those are real conversations that we have. So, you know, 10 years from Walking Wounded, and so far so good.
Which means that some new music is around the corner eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we have no sign. You know, as long as people keep wanting to hear us make music, then we're going to keep making it.
Well, stay tuned for much more from Bayside. This is Jackie. Thanks to Chorus FM.